What started as a regular GMA interview quickly turned into national TV mayhem. George Stephanopoulos didn't hold back, and Meghan Markle, used to polished press moments, was caught completely off guard. What he said left the room stunned, and Meghan speechless. Stay with us because what happened next might just change how America sees her. Before we dive into this explosive moment, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the truth behind the headlines. Now, let's break it all down. 4 weeks. Whispers about Meghan Markle's next big media appearance were building. Her critics were louder than ever, and her supporters, though still vocal, had started to quiet down. After months of silence, speculation, and a few subtle moves in the background, Meghan was stepping back into the spotlight. And this time, it was not just any stage, it was Good Morning America, live, national, and unpredictable. ABC had been on edge. Inviting Meghan onto GMA was not an easy decision. Internally, producers debated the risks. Some saw the opportunity, a ratings spike, a fresh narrative, a public reset for the Duchess. But others warned about backlash, controversy, and the optics of giving her a platform right now. George Stephanopoulos, the longtime face of GMA, was also hesitant. He had built his reputation on tough, political interviews. George was not known for fluff. He pushed for truth, clarity, and control. Meghan, on the other hand, came from a world of curated narratives, careful PR, and practiced smiles. Their styles could not have been more different. Still, the green light was given. ABC booked her for the first segment of the hour, prime viewing. In the days leading up to the show, tension swelled. Backstage crews noticed things. Staff whispered about last-minute changes to lighting, camera angles, even the script. A source said Meghan's team requested edits on phrasing and topic order, something rarely granted on live shows. Producers were torn between appeasing her camp and keeping journalistic integrity. Meanwhile, tabloids circled, social media boiled. Was Meghan going to address the rumors? Would she talk about the royals again? What about the podcast deal that quietly fell apart? Or the Netflix series she allegedly walked out on? And then there was George. He had not said much publicly. But behind closed doors, he was reportedly firm. He told the team he would keep it clean but real. There would be no softball questions, no detours. So when Meghan finally walked into the GMA studios that morning, everything felt heavier. The makeup artist said she was calm, but her team looked tense. George reviewed his notes one more time. The countdown began. The cameras rolled, the nation watched, that something was about to happen. The second Meghan Markle stepped onto the GMA set, you could feel it. The room, once buzzing with casual morning show chatter, suddenly shifted. The energy tightened. Producers glanced at each other without speaking. A subtle silence hung in the air, thick and expectant. Meghan was not late, but she was not early either. She walked with purpose, chin slightly raised, eyes scanning the studio like she had just entered a courtroom instead of a TV set. There was no warm smile, no nod to the crew, just a quiet intensity. A few people tried offering polite greetings. She responded with a soft thank you but did not stop walking. Not even once. George Stephanopoulos sat already in place, flipping through his cards with a calm, practiced ease. His face was unreadable. That classic broadcast neutrality. But if you looked closely, there was something different. Not nerves. Not discomfort, just focus. George was dialed in like he had a job to do, and he planned to do it without blinking. The moment she took her seat across from him, a chill slipped into the room. The kind you feel at the start of a storm. Cameras were rolling. Lights were on, but behind the scenes, crew members exchanged quick looks. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. Something was coming. Something big. Meghan adjusted her mic and folded her hands neatly in her lap. She was poised, but not relaxed. She looked ready to defend, not to share. Her publicist stood off stage, arms crossed, watching every second, every breath. The mood was not celebratory, it was surgical. You could tell Meghan came in expecting respect, maybe reverence. After all, this was her first big solo appearance since that explosive docuseries, but what she got was something very different. George was not handing her the narrative. He was not setting up softball questions, he was waiting. And Meghan knew it. This was not just an interview. It was about to become a showdown. If you are just joining us, smash that subscribe button right now. There is so much more to unpack in this unforgettable live moment. You do not want to miss what comes next. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed normal. GeorgeStephanopoulos.com and poised behind the GMA desk nodded as Meghan Markle talked about her newest foundation project. She spoke about empowerment, women's rights, and storytelling. Her words flowed easily, polished. The camera cut between her and George, showing a poised Duchess on one side and a professional anchor on the other. But then, something shifted. George leaned slightly forward. He placed his cue card down. That was the first sign. He looked straight at her, and the room, packed with silent crew members and blinking red lights, suddenly felt tighter. More still. Meghan, he said slowly, can I ask you something directly? She smiled, but her eyes scanned his face. Of course. George took a breath. There have been repeated claims that your team selectively manages media access, that you push one narrative while actively silencing others. Do you think that is fair to the public? That was it? The air snapped. Meghan paused. I think every public figure has the right to protect their peace, she replied. Her voice remained calm. There is so much misinformation out there, but George did not nod this time. He interrupted. I understand that. But this is not about protecting peace. It is about control. There are accusations you and Harry have manipulated interviews, revoked access, and only allowed pre-approved questions. Can you speak to that, right now? The camera zoomed slightly. Meghan blinked. I think, she said, choosing each word with care. What we are doing is setting boundaries. Just like anyone else would. She tried to pivot. She brought up charity. Again, she mentioned mental health. But George leaned in further, his voice sharper now. Boundaries are one thing, but controlling the media narrative while criticizing the press, that is a double standard, is it not? The audience watching live did not make a sound. Even at home, people froze. You could feel the tension through the screen. Meghan looked down for a second, then back up. I will not apologize for wanting the truth to be told, she said, softly. There is a difference between the truth and the noise. George did not smile. His voice dropped, lower, more deliberate. You are not here to spin, he said. This is a news program. We ask the questions. The public deserves straight answers. That exact line is what sent the internet into a frenzy. Meghan sat back slightly. Not angry, just quiet. Her posture changed. For the first time, she looked less certain. It was only a second, but you could see it. A moment of hesitation. The interview that had started as a soft-focused PR moment had just turned into something raw. George went quiet too. Not triumphant, just still. The camera panned slowly to commercial, and the tension stayed in the room. People watching from home started flooding social media. Some praised George for holding her accountable. Others said he ambushed her, but no one looked away. Because in that moment, live on air, the script broke, and for once, Meghan did not have control. Meghan took a moment, straightened up, and looked directly at George. Her tone shifted, softer, calmer. It was clear she was trying to regain control. She said, I understand why people are hurt, but you have to remember, I have lived through the same trauma. I have experienced what Princess Diana went through, and I will never let my children suffer that same fate. The audience went quiet. It was a smart move. Meghan was not just talking about herself anymore. She was invoking Diana, the people's princess, the woman whose tragic story still haunts the world. Meghan was hoping to tap into that pain, that sympathy, to remind everyone that the crown has a history of hurting women who dare to speak. But George did not flinch. He did not smile. He did not even blink. He said, you are right. Diana suffered, but she never used that pain as a shield. She stood in it, owned it, and when she spoke out, she did it with clarity, not manipulation. Those words hit like a hammer. Meghan's face changed. Just for a second, the confidence slipped. You could see it. She blinked more than usual. Her lips pressed together. She tried to nod like she agreed, but the hesitation was loud. She tried to steer the conversation again. When I speak out, I am not trying to manipulate anyone. I am just trying to protect my peace. But by then, the tide had turned. On the studio monitors, the split screen showed real-time reactions online. Twitter exploding. YouTube chat blowing up. One side was angry, furious that Meghan brought up Diana. The other side was just confused. Some were typing, what peace? Others were saying, she is deflecting again. And George, calmly, stayed with it. Protecting peace is important, he said. But peace starts with honesty. So let me ask again. Why use your platform to attack the very system that gave you the spotlight in the first place? Boom, that was it. Meghan paused. She looked down at the table. Her hand gripped her water glass. She smiled again, but it was tight. Forced, the control she tried to take back, slipping, and the room could feel it. So could the millions watching at home, because in that moment it was not just an interview. It was a reckoning. The energy in the room dropped fast. Meghan shifted in her seat and glanced toward someone just off camera. Her eyes said it all. She was done. No more smiling through it. No more nodding politely. She gave a small, subtle signal with her hand. That was all it took. Her PR team stood up quietly, already moving toward the set. George caught it. He leaned back in his chair, not surprised, not shaken. He gave a tight smile, the kind that says, we are done here. Without raising his voice, he closed it out. Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you. He did not say her name. He did not shake her hand. Meghan stood slowly, adjusting her jacket like she had somewhere more important to be. The cameras kept rolling. She walked off set without looking back. No wave, no goodbye, just silence and the soft shuffle of footsteps. Crews stood frozen. A few whispered to each other. One of the producers mouthed, did that just happen? No one moved for a moment. Then someone killed the lights. Another turned off the mics. The whole studio seemed to exhale at once. But the outside world did not wait. Within minutes, clips from the awkward exit started flooding social media. TikTok was on fire. Twitter threads broke it down frame by frame. Headlines popped up like fireworks. Meghan walks out. Royal meltdown on live TV. George wins the war of words. Even news outlets who had been quiet suddenly had something to say. The tabloids sharpened their claws. The morning shows played the footage on loop. Every gesture, every glance, was analyzed to death. And through it all, one thing stood out. Meghan left, but she did not take control. The silence after her exit spoke louder than anything she said in that chair. Everything shifted in a flash. Meghan's expression changed as she leaned slightly to the side, locking eyes with her publicist off camera. It was subtle, but the message was clear. Her lips tightened, her posture stiffened. That earlier warmth, gone, she was done. Without saying a word. She reached down and adjusted her mic pack like she had done it 100 times before. But this time, it meant something else. She was preparing to leave. George noticed. He glanced toward the producers, then back at her. There was a pause. Not the kind that builds suspense, but the kind that lets tension sit heavy in the room. Then, George turned to camera with a quick, forced smile. His voice had dropped a few degrees colder. And that wraps up our conversation for today. Thank you for joining us. He did not look back at Meghan. He did not offer a final word of thanks. No handshake, no pleasantries. Meghan stood up before the cameras fully cut. One of the crew reached out with a hand, maybe to help or maybe just out of habit. She ignored it. Her team was already moving in. Her PR stepped forward like clockwork, guiding her offset with practiced ease. No goodbyes, no glances back. The studio lights dimmed slightly. A quiet buzz rippled through the crew. One producer still had her headset on, mouthing what just happened, while another stared at the monitor, frozen. You could feel the confusion in the air. Nobody expected her to walk out like that. Minutes later, headlines started hitting social media. Meghan walks out on live interview. Tense moments on morning TV. George and Meghan. What went wrong? The clips were already being clipped, captioned, and shared. The internet had caught on before the show even aired its credits. Inside the control room, someone finally spoke. This is going to be everywhere. And they were right. It already was. Just minutes after the interview ended, the internet caught fire. Clips from the show started popping up everywhere. Within the hour, 2 hashtags were trending worldwide. Hashtag Meghan Meltdown and hashtag George Unscripted. The debate had officially begun. One side of the internet rushed to Meghan's defense. People called it an ambush, saying George crossed the line. Tweets like she was set up. That was not journalism. That was a takedown, flooded timelines. Others wrote, she stayed calm while being cornered. That takes real grace. But the other side was not having it. She dodged every question. One post said, another read. She finally got asked something real, and she walked out. Some even shared memes of Meghan mid-reaction, adding captions like when the script runs out. The divide was sharp. Her supporters saw her as a victim. Her critics saw the mask slipping. Even celebrities chimed in. A-list actress Rachel Monroe tweeted, that was hard to watch. Some people need to stop performing and start answering. Meanwhile, singer Lia Cruz posted, George went too far. That was not cool. The comments underneath were just as divided. YouTubers and TikTok creators wasted no time. Reaction videos, body language breakdowns, and hot takes were everywhere. One popular clip said, look at her hands. That is not someone who feels safe. That is someone ready to bolt. Another claimed, this proves it. The image was always curated. Public opinion started to shift. Not all at once, but the cracks were showing. Some people who had once admired Meghan were now unsure. The words calculated and scripted began to follow her name. What happened in that studio was no longer just a talk show moment. It had become a digital wildfire, and no one, not even Meghan, could control where it would go next. The morning after the broadcast, ABC's Good Morning America released a short statement. It called the interview a robust exchange of views, adding that GMA remains committed to respectful conversations. But behind the scenes, things were less calm. Inside sources started talking. Rumors spread that producers were caught off guard by how far George Stephanopoulos pushed. Some even claimed that a senior segment editor stormed out of a post-show meeting, saying, this was not the show we promised. Others defended George, calling him sharp but fair. One staffer allegedly wrote, in an internal email, he asked what needed to be asked. Meghan just did not expect it. Then came the leaks. A supposed internal memo surfaced online. It suggested that the questions were not approved by Meghan's team ahead of time. That one line, talent was not briefed in full, had social media spinning. Meghan's camp quickly responded, calling the segment a setup and accusing GMA of staging an ambush for ratings. George, meanwhile, kept it cool. At a charity event that evening, a reporter asked him if he stood by the interview. He smiled and said, I asked questions. She gave answers. That is how journalism works. That single quote made the rounds, fueling both praise and outrage. While GMA tried to contain the fire, the damage was done. What started as a morning interview turned into a media storm, and the fallout was only getting started. So, what does all this mean for Meghan Markle? Some say this is her Ellen moment, the turning point where the public begins to pull back. Not because she said something wrong, but because people saw something they had not before, a crack in the brand. A moment where the carefully controlled image slipped, even just a little. For someone who built her public life on grace, poise, and purpose, this felt off script. And that matters. Trust is hard to earn, and even harder to keep. For some viewers, this was the moment Meghan lost a bit of that trust. Not because she was wrong, but because she looked rattled. That is all it takes. On the other side, George Stephanopoulos walked away looking stronger, seasoned, sharp, unafraid to ask what others might avoid. He reminded people why he is still one of the most respected figures in broadcast news. In a single segment, he flipped the spotlight and took control of the room without ever raising his voice. So where does this leave Meghan? She will move forward. Of course, her team will regroup. Her supporters will double down. But the narrative has shifted. She is no longer just the woman who left the palace. She is now the woman who stumbled on camera, live, in front of millions. And that changes everything. If you want more explosive showdowns like this, subscribe now and hit the bell. You do not want to miss what we have coming next. This is just the beginning.